Hi guys, welcome to episode 1 of my 2024 Beastman blog.
Scruffy Crow.
Okay, hot off the back of the previous video on this subject, we have the first episode where we are going to look at getting these guys just initially ready. As I said, a long time ago, back when I started this channel, I did work on these guys, and my idea was to make them into a Warlords of Erewhon army, which never really took off. I never really finished it, and a lot of the models that are anywhere painted are just roughly base coated like this, and they are on these lipped bases, which is what this video is going to mostly be about. Two things about that. When I had these guys, loads of them in flesh color, all laid out, and I think I did some quite nice jobs on them. I didn't like it. I didn't like the sea of sort of flesh. It was too warm, it was too human, and I'm going to go back to one of those older sort of red colour schemes. The other problem obviously is that I based everything on these rounds here. That was because I just couldn't see me using them in a rank and flank any time in the future, and I really like putting retro models on these sort of round bases. I think they look really nice. I think that is a nice mini, and it looks nice on that kind of base. And I think sometimes these minis look a bit more awkward when you put them on a square. But I definitely want to put them on squares now, so that is going to cause me more hassle. So as you'll notice, the best of gores, they're all on these rounds. Now, if they were on 25mm rounds, I'd have been tempted to just leave them and pop them in something like this, like I do for Oathmark. But unfortunately, they're on these 30mm, which, as you can see, if you try and fit them in a correct size tray, they don't really work. The hounds that you can't see at the moment, these were all over the place, and a lot of these were on the larger bases, and I've already worked to sort of separate some of these off. And I have a wonderful box with all kinds of square bases in. Some of them have seen better days, but I think once we've got some paint on, and potentially we'll have to strip some crap off the top, removing sand like this, and I think things that have been PVA'd on, I found just soaking them in a little bit of water just, softens everything up, and you can kind of scrape it off. So we can recycle a lot of these. But I'll never throw away a base unless it is sort of damaged. And a lot of the bases in that box are original GW, so that'll work quite well. I think I'm going to do all the rebasing in one go. So starting now. The trick I've found is obviously what we don't want to damage is the model. These bases, although I'll have paid for them, and it is possible to keep them when you do this. Well, first of all, it's to decipher whether or not this has got a tab. It does have a tab, and if there's tabs on those models, I want to keep them. So sometimes you can kind of just bend them, flex them slightly, and those tabs will break free. With this one, as you can see, the base is broken. But as I said, I'd rather sacrifice the bases than the models, even the tabs. So now that should separate off. And there we have a free on-gore. As I said, I wanted to change the skin colors anyway. Also, these shields, these are from EM4, and that one's not too bad, but about a quarter of them are like this, and they just look like drawing pins, but they're not. They're actual plastic shields, but they were never great. So we're going to try and find some replacements for those as well. I think I'm going to stop trying to save the bases because I've got a lot of these, so 30 of these to do. No, 40 of these to do, so I'm just going to go for speed over saving. And obviously I'm going to strip these, so that's why I'm removing any plastic parts, even if they did look alright. To be honest, even if they've got these shields here, which are, I don't know where I got them from, they were sort of left over from some other project, but they are perfect, and they are metal. So some of these might go back on, but even so, stripping them off for now. Because moving them with plastic parts, because these are obviously going to go in some sort of paint stripper, so we can strip them back. I think the problem with these is not only did I glue them in quite firmly into the slots, but also I filled all the slots with this filler as well, which means they've not got much room to sort of wiggle loose, which is how I'd normally do this. These guys that never got their original paint job, I think are still going to go on the stack for stripping, just to keep the workflow more sensible. Same with this guy. We got this guy off his old base. He was just slotted in there. He's going to go on there. And even though I did some really nice jobs with this, I think the biggest part of these is the skin. And I think it'd be harder to just try and repaint the skin than just to repaint the whole models. The only thing that we're not going to strip, if it's not already sort of done, is the Minotaurs. Now, this isn't my paint job, but I don't hate it. I wouldn't normally play a game with someone else's paint job, and at some point these will be stripped and completely broken down, and the base is saved, and then built back up by me. I even have a spare head, because 2 of these have got the same head, so I'll swap one of those out at some point, potentially. But because obviously I'm trying to do this project as quick as possible, I am going to count these guys essentially as already done for the purpose of this project. So I'm kind of 1 unit down to a certain extent. Now this guy doesn't have very much exposed skin, so I am going to try and have a bit of an experiment with getting this guy fully rebased, and maybe just try and touch up his arms and the backs of his legs there, really, his little snout, without repainting the whole model. His fellow command buddies, though, they're going in the stripping pile. I think these Base-ics are going to be my first unit that I'm going to paint this time round. This is because I hate painting them. I've painted a bunch of these, and they are no fun to paint. There's about 5 sculpts, I think, so I'll be doing each sort of sculpt about 4 times, and they're just quite fiddly, quite a lot of details, no smooth areas. For minis this old, which I normally very much enjoy painting, they are not a lot of fun. Now, with these guys, because I've not filled the bottoms, I'm actually finding it a lot easier to save these bases. I can just sort of go sideways and pop the base straight off, and this sand will crumble off now, and we've got another perfectly saved base. That's quite an impressive break of a base, though. This is all the ones I was trying to save, just shattered into parts. So even when I'm trying to save them, it doesn't necessarily mean I will. I use quite good glue. That's not too bad. We managed to save a handful. As far as rebasing goes, actually I think the ones that are unpainted, so these ones just in black, might just go back on their bases now. I don't think there's any need to strip and repaint that. As far as going back on what bases, I think these guys probably want to be on these diagonals. Yeah, I think all the different poses I think are more or less going to work like that, apart from maybe the command. And a lot of the regular gores go on these sort of diagonal ones as well and fit quite nicely. However, there's a number such as this guy who don't look right on the diagonals, and they want a square one with a slot that way. And I mentioned in my sort of kickoff video for this that yeah, I had to design these bases. I couldn't find a base for this, so that's printed as sort of square and useful and sort of rigid and I don't know, not brittle as any of these other bases. As you can see, these are actually quite brittle. So yeah, I don't think printing these bases is going to be any hardship. These are designed in such a way that you can print them flat to the bed, so they print very quickly. And I'm fairly sure I have enough of these across slot bases to get me by, not necessarily all in this good a nick. This is a 1991 one, so this is definitely the sort of base that would have been around along with these models. And I'm going to try, as weird as it is, to try and get as many actual Games Workshop bases on these guys as possible, but I'm certainly going to limit myself to it. As I said, we'll be using my printed ones or possibly even just bags of ones off eBay just to get this done. The big question for this video, though, is what am I going to base these ungores back on? So my conundrum is basically that in this book, when they came out, these models were obviously on just little 20mm bases, and they look all right on those. As I said, it's a bit snug, but yeah, looks good, which would be probably what I'd lean to for accuracy. But I'm much more likely to play 6th edition, so they would be on 25s along with their bigger ones, so they can all fit in one unit. But then obviously in sort of 7th, 8th edition, they went back to 20s again, even the spear guys. Craziness. So I don't know what's going to happen in the old world, but obviously when they left them, they ended up back on these 20s. And of course, in Age of Sigmar, they went on a 25mm but round base. So if I'd have had any on these, I'd have probably left them again. The other game that I might use this in is probably Oathmark, where they'll represent goblins, but everything in Oathmark is on a 25. So I'm leaning towards the 25s. I don't know if they're a mix. Like this guy, I think he's going to look better on one of these slot across bases. But his little buddy here, I think is probably going to look better on a diagonal. Whereas if you pop him on a diagonal, he doesn't look terrible. He kind of looks like he's not paying attention. So yeah, I think we're going to go with 25s, and I think we're going to have to go a combination of what slot bases I can find, the printed ones, and these diagonals. And then I might as well go ahead and put sand on all of these as well, just to get ahead of the curve, because it is going to take some time. Okay, so for these guys that are getting a full new undercoat, added some PVA and some sand like I normally would. And I've even added some little bits of gravel in there. So now we go back to the guys in the jar. And I was able to pop out on a lunch break. And we've grabbed some nail polish remover. I couldn't find any of the acetone free. I usually used to buy that from Wilco, which is obviously shut now. So this is just regular 2 ingredients, acetone and aqua, so water I guess. And this will do the job nicely. So one of these bottles fills my jar to the top. And they're only £1. And I should be able to leave them to marinate. And probably tomorrow, if not later today, I will be able to strip them down. Okay, these guys have been in the jar for a couple of days now. And I've been adding a few bits here and there. Spilling some of the wonderful juices out occasionally. Okay, so these guys have been sat in the pot now for a couple of days. And it's time to fish them back out. I've been adding a few extra pieces here and there, such as one of these other champions. And as you can see, the paint is kind of bubbled. It's not really shown on the camera very well. But in theory, one scrape from this toothbrush, and already we're seeing bare metal. See, easy as that. And I think the ones that have been in there longest, sort of the paint kind of swells, and it's absolutely no trouble to remove. I'm not going to do this stripping on my main desk though, because what I have found is that even just the few bits I did, it's all flicked up the side of there, and it'll flick onto my minis, and it'll flick onto my paints, and it'll just cause a disaster. So I'm going to go and do this in my spray booth. Okay, instead of being sensible, I hacked apart this carrier bag to make like a splash guard. Now I can work in peace and in comfort. But yeah, we're quite easily going from this to this. This definitely isn't working as well as the Wilco acetone free stuff that I prefer. I might have to have a search around, see if I can find some more of that. So I was struggling with the nail polish remover I got before, which was the acetone one. So I've tried some acetone free one. That's what's in this jar, just as an experiment. This was one with sort of smells and stuff from Lidl. It's the acetone free type. So I'm hoping that'll be a little bit better. I also upgraded the toothbrush to a flat one, which I sometimes find a bit easier than one with these textures. This guy's literally just been in here, I don't know, a minute or two. And already the paint has started to wrinkle and fall off. And I would say, yeah, that's like 100% more effective. For future reference, I won't bother with acetone type nail varnish remover if I can help it, and just get the acetone free type. Okay, so that was a lot of work, and I've run out of PVA, and I think I've lost my mage. But the starting army is pretty much based. For the time being, I'm keeping the gauze and ungauze separate. It turns out that's how they'll play in Old World as well anyway. And in most editions that aren't 6th edition, to be fair. So I've got enough command for 2 sets for the gauze, basically, and 1 set for the ungauze, just to have them have a command if I need to. The best of gauze for the Old World, I've found out now, are meant to be on 30s. So I might try and rig up some sort of adapter tray, or potentially I will just assume that people aren't going to mind that much that they're on 25s. I don't want to put them on 30s, because then I wouldn't be able to go back to older games if I wanted to, or as I said, Oathmark. So the next stage is going to be getting these guys ready for painting. So there's a few bits missing, like shields, that I need to sort out, and on a couple of models there's just a tad of green stuff that I need to do. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.